Now, what happens a lot of times in organizations is that by default, if leaders don't know what are the practices of leadership and that they should actually be spending some time and energy there, then they're going to default to doing supervisory duties and management duties. And if all they do in their days and weeks and months and years in their leadership role is to work in the realm of supervisory or management duties, then they're basically maintaining the status quo.
Welcome to Culture Change RX, the podcast for healthcare professionals that are committed to creating a thriving workplace culture, improving the experiences of employees and patients, and ultimately unlocking their organization's next level of potential. I'm Sue Tetzloff, your host and co-founder of Capstone Leadership Solutions. Join me and my insightful guests each week as we share actionable insights for navigating the crucial people side of the business of healthcare. Subscribe now for a weekly dose of Culture Change RX. Now let's dive into this week's conversation where culture change takes center stage.
Welcome to another solo episode. We call these Culture Bytes. And today the topic is something that we call the leadership bundle. So in culture, we talk about it being, this is how we do things around here. And so when we work with partner organizations through our work at Capstone Leadership Solutions, we work with healthcare organizations, primarily small organizations, usually less than 1,500 employees, most between 300 and 600 employees, most of them critical access hospitals. And when we're working with entire organizations over a period of time, we help them change. This is how we do things around here. And one of the things that we help them change or up level is how they lead around here. So there are several components to our partnership work with them that goes about helping to improve and grow their organization. But this is how we lead around here. This is how we team around here. This is how we achieve around here. And this is how we change around here really sums up the body of work that we assist them with. You know, they've got their eyes on the sights of improving, continually improving their employee and patient experience, and then leveraging that for growth and financial improvements even. So it's just a beautiful thing to watch play out over and over and over again. So this topic of leadership isn't the only thing that we're working with them on, but it is an important part of organizational success is the leadership components. And that is true in every business. And it is certainly true in a people-heavy business such as healthcare. So leading people, leading systems, leading processes, leading finances. There's so much to it, right? And I absolutely love the body of work and actions and responsibilities and activities of leadership. When I was an insider as a healthcare leader, I primarily served as an executive, more than 20 years in various C-suite roles, chief nursing officer, chief operating officer, interim CEO a few times, the chief quality officer. So I've served in many senior leadership positions over a couple of decades. And I always like to describe it as being a leader of leaders when you're in those senior leadership roles. And when we're in those roles as senior leaders, you know, one of our responsibilities is to support our leaders in their leadership development, right? So our frontline leaders need to be improving their competency and consistency in how they lead. And as a senior leader, that was one of my most important responsibilities. And you know, it was actually one of my most enjoyable responsibilities as well. I love that work, especially a lot of times in my organization, but I find it true in a lot of organizations that when we promote from within, we often promote our best techs and nurses and staff to leadership roles. And so a lot of times I was working with first-time leaders. So the very first time they were in a leadership role. And many of them came to those roles without education experience or training in leadership. So it was just an enjoyable experience to help them to grow into these leadership roles. Yet early in my career, in those early years as a senior leader, I really didn't understand that that was one of the most important roles that I had. And I didn't really feel equipped as a senior leader to really serve, to help my leaders grow and improve in this way. And really, what we figured out as our organization was on its own journey to greatness. So we needed to figure out how to transform and turn around a struggling organization. That's when we really stumbled upon what we now call the leadership bundle. But we really stumbled upon this important responsibility in our organization and in our senior leadership team to, one, define a leadership model. This is how we lead around here. And then two, have a systematic cadence of activities to continually develop and mentor and onboard and improve the leadership competencies of all of our leaders in the organization. And really around a set way of leading, which really makes up the leadership bundle. So a leadership bundle in our view is 9 core leadership practices that are proactive, positive, results-oriented leadership practices. And so I really want to break down this concept of a leadership bundle by talking about each of those words separately. The first one being leadership and the second one being bundle. So when I'm talking about the word leadership, I'm really referring to activities that leaders do. So actions that we take as leaders that actually make something better for the future. It helps to improve an individual, a group of people, their behavior, their performance, the processes that they're working in to get better results, right? So it's really about work that's meant and designed to help and improve and grow your organization into the future. So that's when we're talking about the word leadership. What we're talking about is those kind of activities. And we talk about 9 core leadership practices. We're talking about those kind of activities that make something better for the future and serve to improve and or grow individuals or results, those kind of things. So that's what we mean by leadership. And when we talk about leadership, we can kind of contrast it to 2 other things that actually could, in your mind, mean leadership, but we call it something else. So we really break down the role of leaders or the activities and the time and energy that they spent into 3 buckets. One being that leadership bucket, that proactive work that makes something better for the future. But then there's management tasks. And what management tasks are those things that we do as leaders, and we do have to do them, but they're the things we do as leaders that keep day-to-day operations going, but they're very short-term focused and operationally focused. So it might be payroll. If we do payroll every 2 weeks, it's a short term. We're looking back 2 weeks and processing payroll for a 2-week period that keeps operations going. Maybe we're putting out a schedule for our next monthly schedule for our staff. So maybe we're looking ahead a month or 4 weeks with a schedule that keeps operations going. It's not, focusing out a year or 2 from now. It's just 4 weeks. It might be budgeting. So yeah, that's a little bit longer. Maybe we're budgeting for a year, but that's still to keep operations going for the most part. These operational things that we have to do as leaders, we would put those in the bucket of management tasks. And then there's the work of leaders that's really more what we call whirlwind activities or reactive activities of day-to-day operations. Some people might call them supervisory type activities. And that would be things that we do, such as problem solve in the moment. So maybe there's a little bit of a situation going on with a patient or family member, or some equipment is broke down, or some supplies have run out, or maybe somebody didn't show up for work today, or maybe, we have a surge of activity and we don't have enough staff and we're problem solving that. So those in the moment things that we're doing, we're usually, problem solving something that happened yesterday or during the night or that's going on right now. And we're really possibly just band-aiding it or plugging that hole but we're not finding the root cause. We're not, putting in a brand new policy or procedure, those kind of things. So it's not that proactive long-term fix, but it's stuff we have to do. So those supervisory whirlwind duties, the management tasks, and then the leadership tactics. Now, what happens a lot of times in organizations is that by default, if leaders don't know what are the practices of leadership and that they should actually be spending some time and energy there, then they're going to default to doing supervisory duties and management duties. And if all they do in their days and weeks and months and years in their leadership role is to work in the realm of supervisory or management duties, then they're basically maintaining the status quo. They're not making anything better for the future. They're not focused on growing the service line. They're not focused on, improving the productivity, improving the service, patient experience, employee experience, quality, and those kind of things. They're just keeping day-to-day operations going in the current state and, maintaining that status quo. And so you can imagine that over time. Hey, it's Sue here, and I'm popping in with a quick announcement. Just wanted to make sure you didn't miss the opportunity to consider joining the next Capstone Leadership Bundle Academy offering. So it starts September 16th. This is our remote virtual way of getting our 9 core leadership bundle practices into the hands of leaders all across the country. And so 10 weeks of learning, 10 weeks of engaging with our coaches and other students. It is transformative, and it starts September 16th. Learn a practical, doable, proven way to be more effective as a healthcare leader. We're happy to help, and the Academy is one way that we're able to do that. So capstoneleadership.net/academy. More details and registration information is available there. I'll put that link in the show notes. That if you compared your organization with others that are actively engaged in leadership activities where they know how to take time and energy and focus it on making something better for the future, then you can imagine that an organization where their leaders aren't doing that, that organization is going to fall behind. So we lose our competitive advantage. We fall into decline. So if we're not improving and we think we're maintaining the status quo, likely we're actually declining over time and spiraling. And over time, those unsolved problems that really need permanent fixes, those unworked on opportunities that we just pass by because we don't know how to identify them and work on them to fruition, we're going to miss all of that work and we're going to not take those actions. And so by default, we're going to be slipping backwards and it's going to catch up to us. So leadership is an important part of an organization's success long term. For a short time, we can be in crisis mode and supervisory mode, but for the long term success and stewardship of our organizations, leaders need to lead. And an organization can define this is how we lead around here and develop their leadership, onboarding, and ongoing, support process for leaders, accountability process for leaders, training processes for leaders, mentoring processes for leaders. We can design all of that around these leadership responsibilities or leadership practices. And when we do that, we tease out the variation. So if we leave it to every leader to figure this out on their own, like I said, some of them won't. They'll just default to supervisory and management duties because they'll see the necessity of that. They'll feel the necessity of that and they'll call that leadership, but it's not. And when it comes to the leadership piece, people might go out and get their own education, go to conferences, do all of these things. But now they're leading in their own ways. And again, we don't get synergy from that. And it's very hard. Like, let's say I'm the chief nursing officer and I have 14 nursing leaders that report to me. If each of them are going about their leadership in different ways, it's very hard for me as their senior leader to, one, know how they're doing it, know how effective they are at doing it, and know how to help them make that better in a way that is helpful to them. So there's just way too much trying to figure that out. So it's likely not going to happen. But if there is an organization wide model for those leadership practices, and there's an organization wide process, then it's not all on me as a VP. And it makes it easier on me to support and mentor and train and connect my leaders with help in that way and support in that way, even beyond what I can give them, because we have that capability in our organization. And it makes it easier for them to know what it is that they need to learn and do. And so it's really a win-win for senior leaders and definitely frontline leaders to have an organization-wide adopted model of leadership. So that's what we mean by leadership. And then there's that word bundle. And I mentioned those 9 core leadership practices. And so we would call that a bundle or collection of practices. Now in healthcare, we use bundles for all sorts of things. And we know that by bundling best practices or putting together a collection of best practices, that it's synergistic and we can get better results. So we do this in clinical aspects. Me coming from a background of nursing, we would use this, for example, in critical care, like a ventilator bundle. So it was not just one practice that we used to get great results for our patients that needed ventilator care, but it was a collection of practices. And it's the combination of each of those practices working together on behalf of the patient that get them a better outcome from that treatment. And so the same is true in leadership. So each of these practices, we've defined 9 of them over the last 12 plus years, working with thousands of leaders and dozens of healthcare organizations. We've been able to refine it down to 9 core leadership practices. And they really do work together. You know, sometimes it's hard to say one of the examples of one of the leadership practices, setting and achieving goals. Well, we can take some of the other practices, such as improving communication, leading change, setting and achieving high standards, those kind of things. We can use those other leadership practices to help us in the area of setting and achieving goals. So they kind of work together. And it's really hard sometimes to separate them because there's so much interplay between them. And that really does help them connect together nicely as a bundle. So what's interesting about a bundle of leadership practices is that as an individual leader, I could choose to adopt this leadership bundle for my leadership. So even if all the other leaders in my organization weren't, learning this, doing this, leading their departments or their service lines in this way, I could choose as a leader to adopt a leadership bundle. And then in my leadership, I'm going to get better results into the future, right? I'm going to have improvements. I'm going to have growth. And it's not just maintaining the status quo because I'm using these leadership practices. Now, we don't have a lot of time as leaders to engage in this work because we do have to manage. We do have to supervise. It can take up to 80% or more of our days, especially if you're a frontline leader closer to the patients, closer to the processes, closer to the people, your employees. The closer you are in a leadership role, the more that supervisory or whirlwind type activity is going to take up your time and energy, and you have to do it. You still have to do those management tasks like payroll and schedules. You can't not do that. But we still have to carve out time to do these leadership practices. So if I was an individual leader and my organization did not have this defined for me, and I was trying to figure it out on my own, I would go for finding a set or collection of practices that I could incorporate into my days, my weeks, my months, my quarters, my years, to be able to squeeze out even 2 hours a week to be able to do this proactive, positive, results-oriented leadership work. And so we would call that a leadership bundle, and it would be your leadership bundle. And again, you don't have to reinvent this. You can find one that's out there. You can find practices. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, though. You can attend an academy such as Capstone Leadership Solutions. We offer an online academy to learn this over 10 weeks. We also offer public training events over 2 days. You can learn these 9 core leadership practices. So if you're an individual leader, you could find something like that. And it would benefit you not just in the near future, but probably your whole career once you started to learn and incorporate and master and figure this out in your leadership, how to apply it in your leadership. And so that is one thing you can do. But truly, what we've seen to be very powerful, and I've seen it in my own leadership, in my own organization, but now I've seen it across dozens of organizations that we've had partnerships with, where every leader on the leadership team, both senior leaders and frontline leaders, learn the leadership bundle. So they define their leadership bundle, then they define their ongoing process for onboarding and ongoing development of all of their leaders in this leadership bundle. And so when we have a bundle as an individual practitioner or leader, so let's say I'm a clinician in the ICU and I use a ventilator bundle and nobody else does it. But when I care for a ventilator patient, I use a collection of best practices to care for my ventilator patients. Well, my patients are going to get better outcomes because we know that these best practices done within a bundle are going to get optimal results. But you could imagine that if every clinician taking care of any ventilator patient in that entire ICU on any day of the week, any month of the year, if it was consistent by everyone, then all ventilator patients would benefit from all practitioners using this bundle. And that's how organizations get to high reliability or zero defect in an area like ventilator care. So you can go years without ventilator complications because of the synergistic bundle of practices used by everyone. And so apply this to leadership, right? Apply this same synergistic outcome that you can get from a bundle, and not just one leader using the bundle practices, but every leader using the bundle practices. You can imagine what that's going to do to the change initiatives, to the improvement initiatives, to the growth initiatives in that organization when all leaders lead in this way. And so in Capstone, one of the things we're very, very proud of is tracking the results in our partner organizations. So when we start working with them, we capture all sorts of baseline data, such as patient satisfaction, quality, finance, volumes, revenue, things like their employee engagement and turnover, all sorts of data. So we have all of these, data points that we collect baseline data on. And then we watch, as leaders learn to lead in these new, better ways, right? Not just one of them, but all of them. And as we stand up these teams, employee-driven teams, as we help teams and leaders learn how to have a new way to achieve and change. So this is how we lead. This is how we team. This is how we achieve. This is how we change. So as we do this, we're able to watch the results that happen on the other side of this. And it becomes not harder work or longer work. It just becomes different work, right? So this is how we do it around here. It's not extra work. It's how we do our work. And we can't even imagine doing it any other way. That's how I feel in my leadership. If I came to work for your organization right now and you didn't have a defined leadership bundle or core set of practices that said, this is how we lead around here, I would just lead in this way. I can't even turn it off anymore, right? It is just ingrained in me. And I had that in my own leadership practice when I was an insider, was that for about 10 years of my leadership, I didn't lead with a leadership within a leadership bundle, nor did any of the leaders around me or that work for me lead with a leadership bundle. And then I had the experience in an organization where we did define these leadership practices. We did create the internal systems for developing and onboarding our leaders in this way. And wow, what a difference. It feels different and the results are different. And it just is a better way to lead. I didn't work harder. I didn't work longer. I just worked differently. And we got different and profoundly better results from working in this different way as leaders. So a leadership bundle, defining this is how we lead around here, and then defining the systems for onboarding and developing your leaders in accordance with that leadership bundle and the practices within it. It's a beautiful thing. And I wish that for every leader, and I wish that for every group of leaders within an entire organization. And it's very much a part of the work we do here at Capstone. And it's wonderful to watch what happens to organizations when they get this going on. And the leaders love it, the employees love it, and the organizations and the communities they serve benefit because of it. So there we go. Today's Culture Byte is all about the leadership bundle. And like I said, if you are interested either in individual support in this, if your organization does not have a pathway for this yet, and you want to figure this out, go to capstoneleadership.net. You'll see a spot there where you can see upcoming events and see, do we have an upcoming online academy, 10 weeks, where you can learn the 9 core leadership practices, online training combined with 1-hour coaching calls every week throughout that 10-week academy. And then check for dates for any of our upcoming Capstone Leadership Summits. So 2 ways that you could learn a leadership bundle, either online or in a live public training event. Check out the options at our website, capstoneleadership.net. Also, if you're a senior leader in an organization, if you're a key decision maker for all of the leaders in your organization, and you'd like to hear more about the option of a partnership with Capstone Leadership Solutions, which does include having access to all of the resources that would support your organization in adopting the 9 core leadership practices and setting up an internal system for training and onboarding leaders, and much, much more, please reach out to us at our Contact Us page on capstoneleadership.net. And you can set a call and we can talk about what's going on in your organization and see if a partnership might be right for your organization. So thanks for your time and attention today. Have a great rest of your week. And we'll see you next Wednesday on the next episode of Culture Change RX. Bye now.
Thanks for tuning in to Culture Change RX. If you found value in today's episode and you are a believer in fostering change in healthcare, join us in making a difference. Follow, rate, and review our podcast on your favorite platform. Share it with colleagues and your network. Together, we can make a lasting impact. Until next week, keep inspiring positive change.